So recently I decided to treat myself to a brand new carpet extractor. Now I didn't want to go forking out loads of money because it's not going to be one of those tools I'm going to be using on a daily basis. So I got myself one of these. This is a Rug Doctor Spot Cleaner. And the reason I chose one of these over going for a larger model was because I needed something that was lightweight that I could shift around as and when, because it's not something I need to be leaving in the van every single day, because this is the sort of thing that you're going to be using for an upsell. And because it comes in just shy of £150, it's going to tick all the right boxes for those of you on a budget. So in this video I want to put it to the test and find out how good this little machine really is. This carpet cleaner features a 1.9 litre clean and dirty water tank, a 1.7 metre hose and retractable handle with wheels. And best of all, this has a motorised brush, so this could eliminate the need for using a drill brush altogether. So I'm really excited to see how this one's going to perform in today's clean. But before we get started, let's take a look at a quick price comparison between some of the similar models in the market. So we start with the cheapest one being the VAX Spot Wash, and this is going to come in from £100 to £130. We then move on to the Rug Doctor, which is ranging from £140 to £160. We then move on to the most popular one being the Bissel Spot Pro. This is going to set you back from £150 to £170. And last but not least, it's the most expensive one, and it's the Henry Wash, which comes in at £200 to £230. So I'm going to be trying the machine out on this Audi A3, and this one's got complete fabric interior, which means it's going to be a good test subject for today's video. And these seats aren't terrible, but they have got the odd stain on them, and I want to see how well these can come up. So we're going to try and do a 50-50 comparison, and I'm going to run you through some of the chemicals that I'm using along the way. With those typical fabric seats, you normally find those patchy rings, which are mainly coming from spillages of drinks, sweat stains and other types of bodily fluid. But you tend to find spraying a chemical and wiping it with a microfiber cloth actually won't do anything apart from make it worse. So we're doing it properly today with a few different combinations. So for the first attempt, I'll be using Extra Clean from ProChem, and this makes a great all-rounder, and normally I would suggest giving the seats a vacuum first, but for today's experiment I wanted to see how good this would perform on its own. What I'm doing here is spraying the chemical and allowing it to dwell for a few minutes. And I wanted to jump straight in with the motorised brush tool because I feel this is a genius idea that every extractor should have. And as I'm pulling the extractor back, I'm also spraying into the seats again just a little bit more, just to help agitate it. So with the combination of the sucking with the brush, I was quite confident this would work. In terms of sucking power, the Rug Doctor was superb, and it clearly packed a punch, so I was quite surprised for such a little machine how well it could perform. But as I soon discovered after one pass, it wasn't quite enough. So far I can see a couple of little stains here which haven't come out on the first and second pass. So I'm going to let the chemical sit in it just a bit longer. But another thing I want to point out is this motorised brush. Now obviously I can't talk with it on because it's going to make a racket and you're not going to be able to hear what I'm going to say. But basically when this is moving up and down, you don't get the same sort of brute force that you're going to get with a power drill. And although this is a great idea, it's really weak. And these are very soft brushes, by the way. So I just think it needs a bit more power. It needs a bit more brute force if it's going to be able to remove some of these heavy stains that are in here. I mean, alternatively, you can use a pre-spotter, which I have got there, which is basically like a pre-wash before you use your extraction chemical. So I'm going to try that out on a different part of the seat as well, but for my first attempt for this middle bit, it's not looking perfect, but it's all right. So now on to spray number 2 with the pre-cleaner. So what I'm going to do this time is let that dwell for a bit and then hit it again with the carpet cleaner out of this with the brushes, and we're going to see how that works. And if that fails, we're then going to break out the power drill and annihilate these seats. The pre-cleaner did a fantastic job of getting deep into the fabric, and the water was looking pretty filthy in the waste tank, so I knew it was working this time round. And another thing I noticed whilst pulling back the handle, when I was pressing in on the trigger, it was spraying a wider degree of chemical. So basically you have to make sure on your very last pass that you don't hold the trigger and you just use the vacuum solely on its own. Otherwise those seats will never get dry. So these seats are coming up pretty good. I'm pretty impressed by that, but I'm not sure whether it's because I've just given it 2 passes or if it's because I've used a pre-wash underneath. There's so many different factors, so I'm going to put the pre-wash, the pre-cleaner on that seat there, then I'm going to soak it again with the extraction chemical, and hopefully these seats are going to look as good as new. Because the weather was looking a bit dicey with the odd spot of rain, I decided to break out the drill immediately. And using the softest head of the drill brush, it made a huge difference, which left me feeling unsure if I really needed the motorised brush after all. And then soon enough, there was another problem that I was starting to encounter. Here's the thing with this machine, it's not all good news, and I want to give you a quick example now, because what happens is, when this is so short, whenever you stretch it out, it's so easy to tip up, and that's because the wheels are on this corner. So what you find is, when you're using it, it will fall over, and then you're going to lose sucking power because that chemical has just got down in here into this filter. And it's impossible, so you then have to take the waste tank out, empty it out, and leave it on for a few seconds before it can start sucking again, and that is quite annoying actually, if I'm honest. So the machine itself is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I think if you're going to get clean carpets or clean seats and you want to do it properly, you can make do with using one of these. You're not going to need to fork out an absolute fortune if it's just for cleaning your car, provided you've got the right chemicals. Now, when I just used the standalone chemical, I wasn't quite getting the same results as when I was using the pre-wash as well. So here's the thing about this brush. It is very good, and it's better than having no brush at all. So when you compare it to like a Charles Wet Vac or a George, you're going to find that this is going to perform just a tad better because it's agitating those fibres as it's extracting. So it does give you a little extra benefit. However, when you compare it to a drill brush, there's no comparison, but it is a nice little touch anyway. Granted, it's not perfect, but I think if you are going to shampoo seats, it's good to go for a soft brush like this, agitate them, and it will make your life so much easier. So it is a combination of the right machine, a drill brush, and 2 solid chemicals. And here's another thing about using one of these machines. You have the opportunity to make a massive amount of upsells. Depending on whether it's 1 seat or doing all 5 or even 7 seats, you can potentially make yourself anywhere from 50 to 150 pounds. So here's my thoughts overall. This domestic machine is not intended for commercial cleaning, so it does have its limitations, but when you look at the price, the power and the functions of this upholstery cleaner, I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be good enough if you're only cleaning a few seats per week. If you needed something that was more robust for serious heavy duty use, then ideally you're going to have to go for something like a Karcher or a George. That will be the next best thing, but for me and the types of cars that I clean, this was just the thing I needed. But I can't emphasize this enough. If you don't have the right chemicals, then you won't get the same results. If you just chuck any old cleaner on, e.g. an APC, then you might find it will end up breaking down the foam over long term, and it will have to end in having the seats being replaced. Now, I did actually purchase this from Clean Store, and if you want to get your hands on one of these, I'll put a link in the description below.